Welcome back, ladies, gentlemen, and NBs, and thank you for tuning back into St. Andrew TV, a cure for your Monday blues. I'm your host, Andrew, and you're noticing, probably from the start of the video, that you have a very close image of my face, so I do apologize for that. Now, unfortunately, there is a reason why you get to stare at my ugly mug for, just about 90 seconds longer, and that is because in front of me on the table is a certain type of hat that I have assembled over the last couple months that I would like to share with everybody. And there is an ultimate goal here if this hat is well received. However, with that hint out of the way, you will receive another hint when you see the title card in the intro coming up. And then after the intro, I will zoom out and we will see what is sitting on the table in front of me. You saw the title. It is the Saint of the Plains. So now you have a little bit more evidence to, kind of tell you what we will be discussing today and what I have created here in front of me. And you don't have to stare at my ugly mug for much longer. But before we do that, why don't you leave in the comments section before we zoom out and take your best guess of what kind of hat is in front of me. Everybody content with their answers that they submitted in the comment section? Because we're about to zoom out here in about 10 seconds. Buckle up. We are going to zoom the camera out, and what you see before you is exactly what the title card said. This is my rendition of the traditional Boss of the Plains hat. This is the Saint of the Plains. Now, I should mention before we get into the dimensions and the material that this was not custom made. This is a stock hat from Junction Trading Company, and it took me a good long while to find a traditional shape of a Boss of the Plains hat because for some odd reason, I do think that this particular hat style was lost to time. I don't know how the oldest mass-produced hat was lost to time, but I digress. I have nothing but good things to say about Junction Trading Company. I've gotten a few hats from them, and all of them are of the utmost quality. So, with that being said, this is a Boss of the Plains hat that is black in color and is 10x beaver fur felt. Now we will get into the dimensions. I cannot nail down for the life of me what the original dimensions of the John B. Stetson Boss of the Plains hat were. I've seen brims ranging from 3.5 to 4.5 inches. I've seen crowns ranging from 4 inches all the way up to 4.5 inches. I even have catalog clippings that state different dimensions in the hat. And I also didn't pay that price. But I went with the 4.5 inch crown and the 4-inch brim with some alterations to fit what I prefer. The 4.5 inch crown and the 4-inch brim make a lot of sense. Means that we do live in the 21st century as much as my imagination tells me that I do not. The average man in 1865 was 5'7" and weighed 120 pounds. Now, the weight part of it, I'm not too far off, but the height difference and how big my head is quite different. Therefore, I upscaled what I was looking for to 4.5 inch crown, 4-inch brim, because we do live in the year 2025, not the year 1865. Now that I've touched on the dimensions, let's get into the concrete dimensions of what you're seeing in front of you. This is a 4.5 inch traditional Trail Boss crown. Now, there is a pretty significant difference if you really look between a Trail Boss crown and an open crown, as you can see that this has a moderately flat top with sharp yet curved edges to get to the top of the hat itself. That is a Trail Boss crown. You can even see it from this angle, that it is moderately flat, a very subtle curve on the top of the hat. That is a Trail Boss crown. Now you will notice a difference when we get down to the brim of the hat. It is a 4-inch brim, and to my knowledge, the Boss of the Plains hat did not have a 4-inch brim. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Like I said earlier, I have not nailed down the exact authentic measurements of the 1865 variation by John Stetson. However, you will notice something that was not stock with the 1865 variation. This has a bounded edge. The original Boss of the Plains hats did not have a bounded edge. They were raw. They had a natural edge, so there was no material covering the end of the brim. That also leads us into what this hat is made out of. The original Boss of the Plains hat were made out of nutria, which is a South American rodent that hangs out around water, sort of like its North American friend, the beaver, which later John B. Stetson moved to because beaver is waterproof. This hat was designed for the people going up to the Rockies to hunt, to trap, something of that nature. It was meant to deal with the elements, and I do believe there's a story of him actually not having a bucket to water his horse, and he used the crown of his beaver fur felt hat to give the horse water. So another modification that definitely bodes well for the reason why I purchased this hat, and we will get into that in just a brief moment. So we turn the hat over, and there is nothing special other than this has what you would expect to find. It has a leather sweatband and satin lining telling you where the hat was made, right here in the United States of America. I did tell you that this hat came from Junction Trading Company. I spoke with the person who worked there, Paul, who I'm not sure where Paul ranks in Junction Trading Company, but he was oh so helpful because I wanted a 4.5-inch crown with a 4-inch brim and a traditional Trail Boss hat. That's exactly what I did. And the reason for that being, and this is where we'll lead into what I put on it secondhand, is I wanted a more frontiersman looking hat, and no better thing than something that was designed by Stetson himself for people going up to the Rockies to do outdoorsman type activities. And that is precisely the reason why I'm dressed the way I am today, and also why I added this beaded hat band, because it is very indigenous, and that goes back to the old fur trapping days of the early 1800s. Beads were a high ticket item at the rendezvous that the mountain man would have. They would trade furs for it, they would trade weapons. Beads were very pretty and very sought after. And given that this hat didn't exist during the Hudson Bay times, it does give a good representative of something that would be frontiersman-esque. Now, one more thing before we move into things taking out of the said hat band is what the beads design looks like. The beads are in a formation that make 1, 2, 3, 4 black bears on the band itself. And the reason I chose the American black bear is it is my favorite animal. That is some St. Andrew lore. If you ever get a trivia question about me, for whatever odd reason that they would be asking trivia about me, my favorite animal is the American black bear. It is light blue in color, and you can see that it has a little bit of red into the body of the black bear itself, and it also has the paw print with the 5 distinct claws of bears made right into the beads, and it forms black bears and their paws. So let's get into what's sticking out of the hat band is a Merriam turkey feather. To add to the frontiersman look, you added things to your hat that you would acquire in trade or from the natural environment around you. It means that turkeys, especially wild turkeys, are game animals. And there is no doubt in my mind that a frontiersman back in those days would add a feather to the ribbon or the band that they had on their hat to extenuate that this is what they do. This is what they are always around. This is the situation that is always presented to them. But if all else fails, we can go back to the debonair St. Andrew, because underneath there is an inch wide grosgrain ribbon, if you can see that, because I pulled the beaded hat band up. So if I wanted to wear this in town, I would lose all the extra furniture on it and go back to the panache version of St. Andrew. So with all that being said, and I will get into why I'm dressed the way I am, I wanted a frontiersman style hat. I'm usually dressed with the more townsman approach. I have the matching top with the matching bottom, a suit, and there's some neckwear, and usually every hat that I have is outfitted with grosgrain ribbon, which is a little bit more upper echelon in terms of what society views as acceptable in terms of like presenting yourself to other people. I wanted something where I could take out to the desert and fire off some rounds and get a hat dirty that is meant to get dirty. This is the scout hat, this is the frontiersman hat, this is the trapper hat. And I know that the fur trapping days were pretty much dead by the year 1865, and my lighting changed. That is also why you see the leather coat with the tie-up shirt. I wanted to look like a frontiersman, and I've been watching that series on Amazon Prime lately called Into the Wild Frontier, and I've gotten a real infatuation with the American fur trade in the early 1800s. So there is something there that I would like to explore in future videos. However, going back to the hat, the headwear itself, this isn't the final variation of this. I do have some inclination to reach out to custom hat makers to make this a one-of-a-kind hat that is stamped and built to my custom modifications. And I do want to advertise it and brand it as the Saint of the Plains. You see all the telescopic crowns with the flat brim as the St. Andrew hat, but now I'm going to dive into the frontiersman aspect, where I kind of copied the Hateful Eight hat with the Warren. That's kind of my go-to hat in terms of shape and dimensions. I want to build something that's uniquely me and also uniquely Wild West at the same time, where it was a little more rugged, a little bit more frontier. So if this hat or this style is received well, I will reach out to hat companies or people who build hats, and I will give them custom dimensions, and I will give them what modifications I want done to it, so we can build together the first Saint of the Plains hat, not the Boss of the Plains hat. That being said, thank you to River Junction Trading Company. They did not pay me to do this video. They just supplied the hat that I paid for, not sponsored in any particular way. That is all there is to it. I don't take sponsors on this channel, so it would be silly for me to sit here and tell you that they paid me to do so. I only show products that I firmly believe in, so you know that nobody's filling up my wallets, so I spew you some shit and you go buy it and you're completely unhappy. However, we will get into that portion. I do appreciate everybody getting this far into the video. This is the Saint of the Plains. Please leave a like if you've enjoyed today's video, or leave me a comment stating what you liked, or tell me what I should do next. I have a Patreon that allows me to not take sponsorships on these videos, and it also tells you that everything you see on this channel is homegrown and grassrooted. If you see anything new or exciting, it is out of the pockets of yours truly. I do that to remain independent from external forces. The only influence I want in this channel is from the community, and the community only. So if you'd like to continue to support the channel, please feel free to go over to the Patreon link that is linked down in the bio, or you just saw it appear at the bottom of your screen. However, that is not to feel any obligation to do so, only if your means allow it, because the content on YouTube will forever remain free. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed as of late, but for those of you who have come across this video or this channel, maybe because you like Wild West content, maybe you just like the headwear from the less tame Victoria era, Or maybe you're thinking, Andrew, you've done a lot of talking, but you've never donned the hat. Well, I'm here to tell you, you'll just have to wait until next week when you see the hat in action. With some pretty special guests, I might add. Regardless, please think about hitting that subscribe button, because you're a daisy if you do.